You know what nobody talks about? The part that comes after happily ever after. We're so obsessed with the grand romantic gestures, the dramatic declarations, the perfect cinematic moments where two people find each other against all odds. But what happens when the credits stop rolling and real life takes over? I was thinking about this the other day, standing in my kitchen at 2 in the morning, watching my partner sleep on the couch because we'd had one of those fights that starts about dishes and ends up being about everything else. How many love stories actually end up going well after the last page? In movies, in books, in the fairy tales we grew up believing. They all have these neat little endings. The couple kisses, the music swells, and we're supposed to believe that's it. Problem solved. Love conquered all. But in real life, there's no final scene where everything gets neatly wrapped up. The story just keeps going until it doesn't. And that's the part that terrifies us, isn't it? The uncertainty of it all. I started wondering about the bigger picture then. Where does all this come from, you know? This need to connect, to love, to find meaning in another person's existence. How do we come out of that, out of the vast emptiness of space, the cold indifference of the universe, into this, into caring so deeply about someone that their absence feels like a physical wound? Think about it this way. At some point, the stuff inside stars becomes conscious. All those elements forged in the heart of dying suns, scattered across the cosmos, somehow organizing themselves into beings capable of feeling. Every single one of them has a story. Every carbon atom in your body, every piece of oxygen you breathe. They've traveled billions of years to be exactly where they are right now, in this moment, making up the person reading these words. And sometimes, somehow, for whatever reason, you get a chance to become part of someone else's story, even if just for a moment. Two collections of Stardust, recognizing something familiar in each other. It's ridiculous when you think about it. It's beautiful, and terrifying, and completely absurd. I remember the first time I really understood this. I was maybe 22, sitting across from someone in a coffee shop, and they were talking about their childhood dog, or their favorite book, or something completely mundane. But the way the light was hitting their face, the way they gestured with their hands when they got excited, suddenly I felt this overwhelming sense of, what? Recognition, like I'd been looking for this exact moment my entire life, without even knowing it. That's when the questions started flooding in. What's going on? Why am I here? Not just in this coffee shop, but here, alive, conscious, capable of feeling this crushing weight of affection for another human being. It felt too big for my body. Too enormous for any reasonable explanation. People seem to always forget what it's like to fall in love. Even when we're in the middle of it, we forget. We get caught up in the practical stuff. Who's doing the dishes? Who forgot to pay the electric bill? Whose turn it is to call their mother? We forget that we're participating in one of the universe's most unlikely miracles. And how it feels when you hit the ground. Because that's the thing about falling. Eventually, gravity wins. The honeymoon phase ends. The person you thought was perfect reveals themselves to be beautifully, frustratingly human. They leave their socks on the floor. They have opinions about things you've never thought about. They process emotions differently than you do. They have a whole inner world that you'll never fully understand, no matter how long you're together. That's when the real love story begins actually. After the falling. After you hit the ground and realize you're both just people, trying to figure it out as you go along. But nobody wants to hear about that part. We don't make movies about couples who've been together for 7 years and still sometimes lie in bed at night, wondering if they're doing this right. I was having this conversation with a friend recently, someone who's been married for 15 years. She told me something that stuck with me. She said, "Stop, seriously, I can't run anymore." Not literally. We were just walking through her neighborhood, but she meant it metaphorically. She was tired of running from the reality of long-term love, the way it's not always passionate and overwhelming, the way some days it's just quiet companionship and shared grocery lists and knowing exactly how the other person likes their coffee. "You can leave me here, you know," she continued. "I'd understand if you wanted something more exciting, more like the movies. I get it." She was talking to her husband, but she was also talking to me, to anyone who's ever felt the weight of choosing someone over and over again, day after day, even when it's not particularly thrilling. Because here's the thing that's both wonderful and terrifying about real love. It's a choice you have to keep making. It's not something that happens to you once and then you're set for life. It's an active decision to keep showing up, to keep caring, to keep trying to understand another person's particular brand of beautiful weirdness. Couples break up every day for all sorts of reasons: money problems, different life goals, growing apart, growing too close, family drama, career changes, health issues, or sometimes just because Tuesday felt too heavy, and nobody remembered why they were doing this in the first place. Just consider this a very strange one. Sometimes people break up because love isn't enough, and sometimes they break up because it's too much. What are you saying when you promise to love someone? What does that even mean in practical terms? I don't know what I believe at this point, about forever, about soulmates, about destiny. Life is too complicated and absurd to believe anything with complete certainty. But it's also too complicated and absurd to not care about anything. So we exist in this strange middle space, where we love people knowing it might not last, knowing they might change, knowing we might change, knowing the universe is vast and indifferent, and our little human dramas don't register on any cosmic scale. And somehow, that makes it more precious, not less. I think about my grandparents sometimes. They were married for 53 years before my grandfather died. 53 years of choosing each other, of waking up and deciding to keep building a life together. They fought about money and politics, and whose mother got to host Christmas dinner. They went through periods where they barely spoke, and periods where they seemed to share a secret language no one else could understand. My grandmother told me once that she fell in love with my grandfather at least 6 different times during their marriage. Not because she fell out of love with him and back in again, but because he kept changing, and she kept discovering new versions of him to love. The shy 20-year-old, who asked her to dance, became the confident father, who taught their children to ride bikes, became the patient grandfather, who spent hours reading picture books, became the gentle old man, who held her hand in the hospital. That's what nobody tells you about love stories. They're not really stories at all. They're more like seasons, constantly changing, constantly requiring you to adapt and grow and figure out how to love this new version of the person you chose. And yourself, because you're changing too, becoming someone new every day, someone your past self might not even recognize. I was walking home last week, thinking about all of this, about the impossibility and necessity of love, when I saw an elderly couple sitting on a bench outside the library. They weren't talking, just sitting together, watching people pass by. The woman reached over and adjusted the man's collar, a gesture so automatic and tender that it made my chest ache. 50 years from now, will anyone remember their love story? Will there be movies made about the quiet Tuesday afternoons they spent together, the way she always remembered to buy his favorite yogurt at the grocery store, the way he learned to braid her hair when arthritis made it too painful for her to do it herself? Probably not. But that doesn't make it less real, less important, less miraculous. If anything, it makes it more so. All over the world, right now, people are choosing to love each other, without any guarantee that it will work out, without any promise of a happy ending, without any assurance that their story will be remembered. They're getting up every morning and making breakfast for 2. They're having the same argument they've had 100 times before, and somehow finding new ways to understand each other. They're lying in bed, talking about their days, about their dreams, about whether they should paint the kitchen or just learn to live with the weird stain on the wall. They're becoming part of each other's stories, adding their own plot lines to the grand narrative that started when the first stars began to burn. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything. Because in the end, what else is there? We're all just collections of cosmic dust, temporarily organized into consciousness, trying to make sense of our brief time here. And if we're lucky, impossibly, miraculously lucky, we find someone else wandering through the same absurd existence, and we decide to wander together for a while. Sometimes it lasts a few months, sometimes it lasts decades. Sometimes it ends in heartbreak, sometimes in quiet contentment, sometimes in ways we never could have imagined when we first decided to fall. But always, it changes us. It adds new chapters to our story, new elements to the person we're becoming. And maybe that's the point. Not to find the perfect ending, but to keep writing the story, one imperfect, beautiful, absolutely ordinary day at a time.